good afternoon, good evening, good day, sir, good afternoon, ma. Well, hold on, sir. All those things, like, bruh, that's how we do it.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are having the most fantastic day. Whether you are seeing my face and this channel for the first time, or you are a regular who keeps coming back for my content, I welcome you today and I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so, because I can promise you that the content here is amazing. You're going to be entertained, you're going to learn, and you're just going to have a good time. Okay, we're here for a good time. I also want you to like this video. Don't forget to like this. Okay, also guys, the way I'm sitting right now is because the weather is so bloody cold. I feel like we're gradually transitioning into winter in South Africa. And guys, if you know me, you know that I'm a sunshine girly. So I don't know, I struggle when the sun is not shining, but I am showing up and I am doing this today, and I'm just trying to be in like my most cozy position in my house, trying to keep it warm with a jacket, and hopefully this goes well. All right, let's get into it. Yeah, so I'm making today's video because about 2 or 3 weeks ago I made one where I was talking about things that I saw in South Africa for the first time as a Nigerian, or things I had only heard about and I sort of knew they existed, but coming into South Africa was my first time encountering them. And I think a lot of people enjoyed watching that video. So thanks to everyone who has watched it and who engaged, who left a comment. If you haven't seen that one, I'm going to link it up here, right? But in the comment section of that video, I got a lot of questions about, so how is it then done in Nigeria, or so what do you have in place of this in Nigeria, things like that. And I feel like I was able to answer those. But that also gave me the idea to do this video where I'm going to talk about Nigerian things that might come as a shocker to a South African. So the same way I as a Nigerian came into South Africa and was shocked to see certain things, now I want to talk about things that as a South African, if you go to Nigeria, it might be your first time seeing those things, and yeah, they might be a little bit of a shocker to you. But I mean, that is why our countries are diverse, that's why cultures are different, and at the end of the day, all that matters is that we learn to love and respect one another. So yeah, let's get into these 8 amazing things that you will find in Nigeria. Also, before I start, I just want to leave this information here. I grew up and lived mostly in Western Nigeria. I only spent a year in another part of Nigeria called Cross River State, where like the culture is quite different from what we have in the West. So this video is going to be based on my experiences in the parts of Nigeria that I lived. Okay, so I don't want anybody saying, oh no, but in my tribe, blah blah, because I mean, I'm just saying based on what I know. But by all means, like if you want to add any other things in a constructive way, you're welcome to do so. All right, now let's get started. I feel like the first thing in Nigeria that might shock the average South African is just how much we speak English, or the variation of English that is Pidgin English. So the thing about Nigeria is one of the most linguistically diverse countries in the world, because we have over 500 languages in Nigeria. I kid you not. Because of that, you find that a lot of people have learned how to speak English or Pidgin English, and that is the language that a lot of people communicate in. The common language that binds us, just like in South Africa, is English. In Nigeria, whenever you enter into a place of business or any place, chances are the first person who's going to greet you is going to greet you in English. Good morning, good afternoon, things like that. But I find that in South Africa, as long as you're black and they feel like you're amongst the people, you will get a sawubona first before you get a oh good morning if you say that you don't understand the language. So yeah, that's the first thing that might shock you about Nigeria. We have over 500 languages, and I guess we've all come to like an agreement to just speak English or speak Pidgin English. And yeah, it's not because we don't like our languages. We still very much speak our Yorubas and Igbos and Hausas and all the other languages. But when we come to like places where a lot of people are, we just tend to go for English to include everybody. Second thing that might shock you as a South African if you go to Nigeria is the way we greet people, right? So in South Africa, I have actually learned to say hello more, because in Nigeria, it's good morning, ma, good afternoon, good evening. And I remember one time I had just met one of my neighbors for the first time, and she was an older lady, and I said, good afternoon, ma. And then I realized that she didn't even like think that I could possibly be talking to her, because she was like, who is the person? And it was when I now said hello and I waved that she said hello back, because that was what she could relate to. You'd typically say good afternoon, sir, or good afternoon, ma. And then when you're talking to older people, almost all your sentences end in sir, 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 or ma, ma, ma. In my tribe and in most of Nigeria, actually, we get on our knees to greet older people. Guys, like I said, it was here that I learned to actually just say hello and smile, or give a handshake to older people, because where I'm from, you will get on your knees or if you're a guy, you're going to prostrate and say, oh, good afternoon, good afternoon, sir. Like, yeah, so that's how we greet. Of course, nobody's going to hound you for not getting on your knees if you see them in Nigeria, like as a foreigner. Nobody's just sitting there expecting that from you. That's mostly found like within families or people who are familiar with one another, or if you see another person that you know is from your tribe and you expect them to know that form of greeting. But yeah, I think it's just going to be very interesting to see that as a South African, because even if you enter a place that has 20 adults, like depending on how chill they are or how traditional they are, like chances are you actually go around the room and go and kneel down for all of them one by one. Good afternoon, good day, good day, sir, good afternoon, ma, well done, sir. All those things, like, bruh, that's how we do that. That's how we roll. Next thing that might shock you in Nigeria, which is actually closely related to the greeting topic which I just talked about, because it also has to do with respect, is that in Nigeria, if someone is older than you, or in most Nigerian cultures, let me put it that way, if someone is older than you, then you kind of have to give them a title. Of course, this differs for different families, right? But say you have an older brother who's 5 years older than you, you will have to call him Brother Samuel. Let's say his name was Samuel, right? Brother Samuel. Sister Deborah. Maybe I encounter these people in another environment where they're not your brother or your sister, then you typically use auntie or uncle. So Auntie Hope, who is in no way related to me, Uncle Sam, who I don't know from anywhere and I just met 2 days ago, but he's now uncle, she's now auntie, because they're older than me. Like, I can't just, if I just say Sam, oh, a town hall, they can call a town hall meeting on my head because I did that. As a matter of fact, the term that is used to describe that in my language, when you see an older person and then you just call them by their name, basically they say that you took their name and hit it on their head. That's the term that is used. I don't think I want to go into saying that in Yoruba because I feel like I might butcher it. It's like you did something rude or something mean to them by just calling them by their name, as opposed to calling them auntie or uncle. Like, even when you're getting married and you meet your in-laws, maybe your husband's older brother or something, you typically say, oh, uncle this or brother this, which is, well, from what I've seen in South Africa, it is not at all the case. So yeah, that's another thing we do. But like I said, this does not apply in all families. I, for example, call my siblings by name. I mean, there are other ways that we show respect to each other, or I show respect to them, being that they're older than me. But I call them by like their normal first names, and yeah, we just love each other like that. Now, number 4 is taxes. The fourth thing that, if you go to Nigeria, this might shock you a little bit, is the way the taxi system is run, or the kinds of taxis that you might see in Nigeria. So in most parts of South Africa that I have been to, you find that they have the white buses that have like the South African, like, what, mini graffiti on the side, right? I'm going to insert that here, of course. That's your typical South African taxi. And practically everywhere I have been, I have actually seen that kind of taxi. But what you don't know, or what you might see in Nigeria, which might come as a shocker, is that every state is sort of responsible for what its taxis look like. So in Lagos, when I was in Lagos, we had the yellow buses with the black stripe, and then we had yellow cabs as like the small ones. In Ibadan, we had brown and like yellow, this weird, I think mustard yellow or something. And then we had micras as the little taxis. The taxis are different. The transportation the transportation is just looks different like everywhere you go, but it's typically you have the big buses and then you have the small cars, which are in most cases micras. Okay, now we move on to number 5, and the fifth thing that you might see in Nigeria that is a little shocking is the fact that there are no government grants for individuals. I don't know what was happening before COVID, but ever since COVID, I know that South Africa gives government grants to people, to a specific group of people, and you can, as long as you're a citizen and maybe you don't have a job or something, I know that you can apply for that. But yeah, there is no such thing in Nigeria. There are no grants. So you can rest assured that every single person that you see in Nigeria who is able to eat and, get by is either working for the money one way or another, or being given the money by somebody. But that somebody is not the government. All right, now on to number 6. Another thing that you would see in Nigeria that is rather different and might shock you is the fact that the way our markets and supermarkets are used is very different. So in South Africa, if you want to do your grocery shopping, chances are you go to ShopRite, you go to Checkers and all the other grocery stores, and maybe you go to the market to pick up one of 2 things, perhaps. Or if you want to buy meat, you go to a butchery, things like that. But in Nigeria, the market is actually the main place that people go, and then the supermarkets kind of like supplement, right? So your average Nigerian family is doing all their grocery shopping for the month in a market. In South Africa, you would typically go to the market and find things like fresh produce, but you won't really find things you like find on the shelves in supermarkets, right? But in Nigeria, like even the detergents, even the canned foods, pretty much everything that you will find in a supermarket, except for maybe some high-end goods, you would find in a market. So most people do the bulk of their shopping in the market, and then they go to the supermarkets for perhaps things that they can only find in there, or just things that they need to supplement every here and there, because the markets are typically cheaper than the supermarkets. Whereas I find that from my experience in South Africa, I find that the prices of a bunch of things, maybe not every single thing, but for a good amount of things, like the prices in the market versus supermarkets, the price difference is like really tiny, or in some cases, it's actually the same price. Number 7. Number 7 is, this one's actually quite funny, but number 7 is the amount of tomato and pepper that we consume in Nigeria, especially in Western Nigeria. If you're a South African and you see that, then you will actually be shocked. Like one of my friends who's also a content creator in South Africa, I remember in one of her vlogs, she was saying that like people saw how she was buying tomatoes in cartons, and they were asking her like, do you sell this thing? Like, why would you need that amount of tomatoes? But it's just because of how we consume pepper and tomatoes in Nigeria, or even peppers. Like, we like our food like extra spicy. I think I've only seen 2 places so far in South Africa where I've asked for spicy and the food was actually spicy. Like, what South Africans would usually address as spicy is what Nigerians would perhaps say is normal, right? So yeah, the amount of tomato and pepper that we consume is a lot. And this is mostly because most of our dishes, especially in the West, are tomato based. Like, so when you're making a stew in South Africa, you're just like adding different ingredients and spices until the meat sort of releases its own juices. Whereas in Nigeria, a stew is typically a mix of tomatoes and peppers and onions, and then you add some maybe fried meat into that. That is what we call a stew. Most of our dishes, from stews to soups to jollof rice to all the things, like they are tomato based, and because of that we consume a lot of tomatoes and pepper in Nigeria. Another thing that might shock you, which is also like, same as this, is how we grind our tomatoes and peppers in our markets, and even sometimes on like your street. You'd find that there's a person who grinds pepper, because that's just how much we eat it. So when you buy your tomatoes and pepper in the market, they can clean it for you there, and then they just blend. And yeah, I'm going to insert a clip of what the grinder looks like typically, because of the quantity, because sometimes your blender just can't handle the quantity. I mean, I only started using a blender properly when I moved to South Africa. In Nigeria, you just buy your bulk pepper and tomatoes, and you would blend it in the market, or take it home, and either on your street or 2 streets after you, there's a household where they have a grinder, and it's like a side hustle for them, and you just go there and grind whatever you want to grind. So yeah, that's something that you might see on most streets or in most situations in Nigeria. And yeah, don't let it shock you too much. And now on to the last thing that I'm going to share in this video. This one has my heart, because I will always be a fan. The size of Nigerian parties, the intensity and the seriousness with which we organize parties in Nigeria might come as a shock to you. This is why they say ain't no party like a Lagos party, because, and I'm not even talking about parties where like young people come together and just try to have a good time. No, I'm talking about like somebody's 60th birthday, or somebody's wedding, or somebody's grandparents' funeral even. Like, you will be hearing 500 guests, 1,000 guests, 3,000 guests. You'll see our party venues, and basically like the places where, like in South Africa, you'd have conferences and exhibitions. Those are party venues in Nigeria. Like, it's that deep. So yeah, the party scene in Nigeria is huge, and when we're trying to have a party, we have to figure out what fabric everybody's going to wear, because we all have to match. We have to pay for like heavy decoration, heavy, all the foods. Like, you go to a party and the food is just coming, variety, like you can't even stop. I actually hope that every single person who's watching this video gets to experience a Nigerian party in Nigeria at some point. We typically call them Owambe. So yeah, I hope that you get to experience an Owambe at some point in your life, because we know how to have a good time. We know how to throw it down when it comes to these parties. All right, guys, those are the 8 things I was going to share in this video. You see that I didn't really talk about very serious things like political things and the ways that the government is different. See, this channel is not really about that kind of stuff. This channel is here for good vibes and to make you happy, and not to make you feel like, oh yeah, life is bad and the government is bad and all those things. Like, I'm not about that life. I'm just trying to see the silver lining in every cloud. That's why I have shared what I have shared in this video. If you are South African and you've ever been to Nigeria, I want you to tell me about your experience in the comment section. If you are looking forward to visiting Nigeria at some point, let me know that as well. And if you're a Nigerian who's watching this and you want to visit South Africa, or you've been here and you also want to add like a few things that are different, then by all means leave that in the comments. All right, guys, thank you so much again for watching. Please don't forget to like this video. It goes a long way in helping the channel reach more people when you like my videos. And please, if you have not subscribed yet, please go ahead and do so. I feel like this video is coming out during Easter, so happy Easter. I hope you're having a fantastic Easter, and please don't lose sight of the reason why we are celebrating Easter. Jesus died for our sins and he resurrected on the 3rd day, and because of that we can have a relationship with God, and God loves us so much that he made this big sacrifice for us. So let's key into that as we celebrate Easter, and let's have an amazing time as well with friends and family, just sharing love with them. All right, guys, I will see you on the next one. Stay safe and stay blessed. Bye.